When I'm filming, I often take a few shots on spec, not necessarily intending to use them in anything specific, but just in case I need some B-roll. Well, at Baker Street the other day, I caught this announcement.
Would Inspector Sands please go to the operations room immediately? Would Inspector Sands please go to the operations room immediately?
Inspector Sands is a code that's meant to be known only to staff, but so many people know it by now that it's basically an open secret. What it indicates is that a fire alarm has gone off. Not necessarily that there is an actual fire, just that a fire alarm's gone off. In the event of an actual fire, they'd have a conventional evacuation announcement. The reasons you'd need such a code are obvious. The underground can get very crowded. Much of the space in stations below ground consists of long, narrow corridors. Simply announcing that there's a fire in rush hour could lead to more harm than the fire itself. As an example of how badly things can go wrong, on the 24th of November 2017 there was a panic in Oxford Circus tube station. A fight broke out on the westbound Central Line platform. This led some in the crowd to believe that they'd heard gunfire, which in turn led to a rapidly spreading rumour that there was a terrorist attack in progress. This led to a stampede towards the exit, which in turn caused panic in the surrounding streets. Social media spread news of the apparent attack, and armed police and fire services were called in. Well, there was no terror attack, of course, but 16 people were injured in the panic over nothing. So what I'm saying is, it's very easy for things to get out of hand. The code Inspector Sands is borrowed from the world of theatre, where it's normally Mr. Sands. Shouting fire in a crowded theatre is an archetype of a terrible idea, and there have been several fatal stampedes in theatres over the years, so it's unsurprising that the Backstage Mafia came up with a code to allow them to discuss such matters without panicking the audience. The term was brought into use in the 19th century, and my friend Jack, who works in the backstage arena, informs me that it was in use in many theatres until quite recently, like a couple of years ago. Apparently these days they use different, more specific codes. One wonders what they did when the late Julian Sands was treading the boards. Why Mr. Sands? Well, because sand was used to put out fires, typically kept in buckets backstage. Water was messy, and once electric lighting came along, potentially dangerous. These days, conventional fire extinguishers are used, although there might be a bowl of sand backstage if an actor has to, for instance, smoke during a performance. But anyway, that's why the term was used. Innocuous enough to Joe Public, but with significance to those who need to know. IYKYK, as the kids say. Something I wondered is this. Perhaps you've heard of the phrase limelight. It originates from the fact that in the 19th century, before widespread electricity, quicklime was heated to produce an intense, bright white light, far better than anything else available at the time. Quicklime also heats up when doused with water, so I suspect, I cannot confirm this, but I suspect that that may have been another very good reason why water wasn't used. The Underground, as I say, borrowed the term from theatre. If you've ever been on a heritage railway, you may have seen fire buckets hanging around the place. These were, again, filled with sand. Of course, the Underground served the theatres of the West End. It was something the early lines encouraged as a means of wringing money out of passengers outside of rush hour. The Piccadilly Tube even ran a theatre special in its early days, from Finsbury Park to Strand. Perhaps that was a bit ironic, given that Strand Station had been built on the site of the Aldwych Theatre. Those trains are long gone, but theatre-goers still rely on the tube to get them home after a night in the West End. So I suppose it makes sense that there'd be some crossover of terminology. But while it may have been curtains for Mr. Sands, his brother the Inspector has enjoyed an extended run. Well, I do hope you enjoyed this theatrical tale from the tube. If so, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing if you have not already. I would like, if I may, to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the stage manager to my little play. and I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.